Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter. Hi there guys, it's Adam Martyn here, and welcome back to another video, and we're going to be talking about something that we haven't talked about for quite a long time on this channel, and that is Doctor Who. Now, I used to put these out on the AMTV Who channel, but that's no longer being updated, so it's coming out here. And namely, that we're going to be getting a brand new Doctor Who show, but with a few firsts. For one, it's going to be animated instead of live action, and it's going to supposedly land on CBeebies. That's right, Doctor Who is going to CBeebies, which, for those maybe outside of the UK or who aren't familiar, is the BBC's preschool channel, essentially. Now, there's a lot to discuss about with this and about the wider Who brand as a whole, but let's take a look at the main focus, the article itself. It says, Doctor Who, the TARDIS, is set to land on CBeebies, which made many of us raise our eyebrows enough, but let's see. The BBC is set to expand the Whoniverse as it launches plans for a brand new preschool animation series, which will see the Doctor's adventures come to CBeebies for the first time ever. The BBC is looking for a passionate production company to create and produce the series, which will run independently from the main show, that will see the Doctor travelling through time and space for the preschool audience, solving mysteries and problems alongside their companions and other friends. And of course, they may come up against one or two challenges on their way. Now, just to start with, on the whole, do I think making a Doctor Who related show for the preschool audience is a bad thing? No, of course not. I think Doctor Who is one of those very unique programs that can reach across different generations, both young and old, and yes, going as young as the CBeebies audience, which I believe is like under fives, right? It's never really happened with Doctor Who before. I know Doctor Who related actors have, say, appeared on CBeebies to read the bedtime story and things like that, but we haven't had a program within the Whoniverse of this nature. And I think it could be really good. It could be a really good benchmark for telling like adventure stories that are both suitable for that audience whilst also teaching very important, early life lessons and stuff like that, how to be good, how to be kind, all that sort of stuff. And I can already see now, like, there are large swaths of the fandom that will berate this and criticize this to high heaven, but let's just keep this in mind. When this eventually, if it ever comes to fruition, this show is not for you. As in, like, the average Doctor Who fan, it's not made with us in mind. It's made for that preschool audience. Just continuing on, it says, speaking about the plans, Patricia Hidalgo, the Director of Children's and Education, said that everyone is welcome at CBeebies, including the Doctor. This much-loved franchise entertains millions around the world, so it's only right that our younger audience get to experience the wonder and the magic of the Doctor in a brand new format. This is an extremely exciting opportunity, and we're looking forward to welcoming companies to pitch for this new project as we continue our commitment and investment in the UK's animation industry. So brand new original animation, that's only ever a good thing in my eyes. There's not enough of it going round, and particularly with the state the film and TV industry is in as a whole, I think this can only be a net positive, if you ask me. I wonder which companies are going to come forward. They're looking for companies to pitch for it. So in theory, this isn't going to go ahead unless they find a company that they align with or work with, right? At least that's how I'm reading it, because why would you pursue it if you don't have animation companies in mind, There are many questions to be asked. This isn't obviously, I'd like to think, it's not going to be like the main show. It's not going to have that same scare or threat level because, quite frankly, for a CBeebies audience, that would be wildly inappropriate. I think it's definitely going to be toned down, something more akin to, you can have adventure shows for preschool kids, that we've had shows like that time and time before. But one question on everybody's lips is who is going to be the Doctor in this show? Normally when we have spin-offs, it's whoever the incumbent Doctor is, which I would say is Ncuti Gatwa. Let's just say, if you've seen the recent series, that's not necessarily the case anymore. With Ncuti regenerating into Billie Piper, and yes, we don't know if Billie Piper is actually playing the Doctor or some other kind of character, but it leaves a bit of a grey area as to who you want to front this show. I've seen many names bandied about of who would be good fits, Tom Baker, doing that lovely iconic voice he has. That would be so good for a show like this. Or Matt Smith even, or Paul McGann. First of all, with these actors, they've got to be interested in doing it to start with. But also, I've seen a lot of people say it's probably going to be David Tennant, isn't it? Now, don't get me wrong, I've got no gripes against David Tennant. He was one of my childhood Doctors. Love him to bits, love his portrayal, love him as like a human being, his performance as an actor, all of that sort of stuff. But I think it is fair to say in recent years, he has popped up in the Whoniverse a lot. You had the 60th anniversary specials, and even before that, his Doctor is frequently used in promotional material. And from like a business standpoint, I can see why they do that. David Tennant, just from like a popularity standpoint, is one of the most popular Doctors that we've ever had. So when it comes to promoting the show and its back catalogue, I do understand on one hand why he always gets like front and centre treatment. Is that always the right sort of treatment? You could argue back and forth on that. Sometimes it isn't, I don't think. But a lot of people have said, why can I see this ending up being David Tennant? If it is David Tennant, again, I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. He's worked on preschool related shows before and, you know, has generally aced those roles. So I've got no doubt he could tailor his Doctor, whether it's the 10th or the 14th, to be more suitable for a preschool audience. But I do think it would be good if we had one of the other Doctors fronting and centering this show. But also, mind you, this isn't going to happen for quite a while yet, as in when the actual show comes to life, so maybe things might change. As part of the pitch, which is on a Word document, they're still using that blooming photo from 2005, which is both hilarious but also quite sad. So, right at the beginning about the commissioning opportunity, it says CBeebies is looking to commission one series of 52 11-minute episodes, 26 for transmission in 2027-28, and 26 episodes for transmission in 28-29. We anticipate pre-production would therefore need to begin in January 2026, which, need I remind you, is a little over 6 months away. It claims that the guide price is going to be indicative of high-quality animation. Information on budget and financing for the series will be made available to the verified production companies on receipt of a complete and signed NDA form, of course. And this is available on the BBC website. You know, you can absolutely scrape through this and see what they're telling people. But it does give an interesting thing about the Doctor themselves. It says, we are keen to retain the following attributes. The Doctor, hugely intelligent, especially with scientific knowledge, aspirational for our audience, travels through time and space, saving individual civilizations and planets, an alien with 2 hearts from the planet Gallifrey. Whoa! So some fans are going to be like, well, hang on a minute at that one. Has a strong moral compass, avoids physical combat, relying on intelligence, humour and diplomacy to resolve conflicts, has a TARDIS and a sonic screwdriver, which should feature in the series. It talks also a bit about the companions as well, and also talks about the villains and monsters. Not necessarily listing any. It does say a list of existing villains and foes for you to choose from will be provided to suppliers who register to pitch. Now, the BBC doesn't necessarily own the rights to all the monsters and villains in Doctor Who, so it would be interesting to see which ones are available and also which ones can be tailored for a preschool audience, because as we know, some of the monsters in Doctor Who's history can be definitely quite frightening. It says it'll allow you to bring Doctor Who to life for a younger audience of 4 to 6-year-olds. The order is for 52 11-minute episodes, but we're open to exploring two-parters where this would benefit the narrative. Wow, two-parters in a preschool show? Who'd have thunk it? So yeah, I won't go through the whole thing here because a lot of it is just like the technical jargon and stuff like that. But please feel free, go on the BBC website, have a look at it yourself. Look at that lovely 2005 picture that the BBC just can't seem to let go in anything. So 52 11-minute episodes, you could definitely tell adventure stories in that format, particularly ones aimed at a younger audience. But again, I just think this is a really great idea. I'm amazed Doctor Who hasn't tried to dip its toes into the preschool world before. We've, of course, had more adult-related shows, say, like Torchwood and Class, and in theory, The War Between the Land and the Sea, the new spin-off, that looks like it's going to be a bit more adult, for want of a better word. And we've also gone the other way and had programs that are more towards like children, like the Sarah Jane Adventures, but that was more for the CBBC crowd, not your preschool type of audience. So great that Doctor Who's delving yet into another demographic. It's a well-known enough brand that I think it would attract attention in that field, and providing what animation company comes forward to step up and do it, I think it could be something really pretty cool and something that will be beneficial to younger audiences. But this does speak to the brand as a whole, which I want to talk about for a little while, because Doctor Who recently finished its most latest series, and the response was quite apocalyptic, shall we say. Now, full disclaimer, as a viewer, I quite enjoyed the reality war for the most part. There were parts that made me sort of raise an eyebrow, scratch my head, but to be honest, I'm nearly 30 years old. I think I've reached that point in my Doctor Who fandom where I'm sitting down to watch it. I'm not hyper-analysing it. If I enjoy it, great. If I don't, okay. Do you know what I mean? I still like the show. I still care about the show, but my days of being like hyper-focused and analysed on it, I think, are well behind me. So I quite enjoyed the reality war on the whole, but yes, a lot of people didn't like it, and there's been lots of rumours and discussions about what's going on behind the scenes. Supposedly, Disney aren't happy, and supposedly that deal of financing has come to an end. There's recent rumours now saying that the BBC is locked in talks with another high-profile financier who might help them out, but that financier wants greater creative control and wants to make it a bit more, quote-unquote serious, take itself more seriously, but allegedly Russell T Davies, who's the showrunner, doesn't want that. He wants to maintain a fun and campy approach. Again, I want to stress, at the moment, this is all hearsay, this is all leaks, this is all rumours from people who claim to be inside sources. I always go by, until we hear something definitive from the BBC themselves, or from Russell, or from Bad Wolf Studios, or we just see it on TV, then I don't personally take it as read. If you choose to, that's absolutely fine, but I would advise taking it with a pinch of salt. In terms of the brand, a lot of people are comparing this to back in 1989 when the show was originally cancelled / taken off the air for the first time. I do think it's quite different then. First of all, we're in a very different world. Back in 89, Doctor Who was the only show on telly of the brand. So with that gone, the BBC basically shrugged and said, right, we're done. And it was up to different companies and the fans to keep the show alive, which they did for, a decade and a half. Whereas these days, first of all, we've got the new spin-off, The War Between the Land and the Sea. That's coming out supposedly sometime next year, I think. So that's going to be on the telly. We've also got this new CBeebies animation, which is aiming to premiere in 2027. So they're looking at the future of that, clearly. So even if the main show, if they can't figure out, say, a deal for finances or it has to be rested or whatever, I feel pretty confident in saying I don't think Doctor Who is cancelled in, say, the traditional sense or the sense that it was back in 1989. I still think we're going to get something. If not a third full series, I think we'll get, a bunch of specials, which, fans say isn't ideal. But listen, specials in my eyes are better than no Doctor Who whatsoever. But personally, I think the brand is doing okay. It still generates a lot of money for the Beeb. I mean, merchandising alone, it generates huge amounts of money. Overseas sales as well. We can't deny it makes a lot of money being sold to overseas territories where it still remains incredibly popular. So I think the brand as a whole is fairly safe. I think in terms of the main show on television, is there a chance we're going to get, just a special season of one-offs, or it's going to be rested? Absolutely, there's a chance of that. I think the reception on the whole, maybe in terms of a fan sense, hasn't been what the BBC wanted. But in terms of ratings, and I'm talking about how ratings are calculated these days, the show continues to do decently in the current landscape compared to a lot of other programs. So I think the brand's safe, but maybe a bit of an uncertain future. So a bit of clarity from the BBC, a bit of them coming forward and saying, no, Doctor Who isn't cancelled, or yes, it is cancelled and here's why. Just something like that. I do think Ncuti Gatwa, bless him, was sort of outed a bit too quickly. Outed's not the right word. I don't know the behind-the-scenes decisions. None of us really do. There's that clip of him where he says this was always the plan to do 2 series. Some people call BS on that, claiming that he'd wanted to do more, he'd wanted to do a third, but everyone was holding out too long. Disney were holding out, the BBC, etc. But I do feel for him. I did like his Doctor. I felt he was really coming into his own with it as well in his second series. And with the third one, as with many Doctors in the past, that could have easily been his definitive season in the TARDIS. But it wasn't to be, and we've lost him 18 months after his first appearance on screen, which is criminally short. As for Billie Piper, God knows, man. I'm convinced that she isn't the Doctor. She wasn't billed as such. Nothing's been confirmed. There's been no press statement, etc. But I am excited to see her back. We all love Billie Piper, very talented performer. But I just hope in whatever capacity she has returned in, I just hope that the story that's given to it is somewhat coherent, makes sense, pays due to her, what's come before, etc. But we'll have to wait and see when that comes out, because we don't know. But that's the bulk of this video. The focus I wanted to talk about was the preschool show, but I just wanted to touch on the brand as a whole and reassure long-time viewers of mine, if you've been watching for a while, yes, I am still very much a Doctor Who fan. My, focus on it isn't as strong as it once was, but I still have a lot of love and a lot of passion for this show. And maybe I'll do some Who-related videos on this channel in the future. We'll see. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like on it. It does really help us out. And subscribe to the channel as well, because we'd love to have you aboard here with us. In the meantime, I've been Adam Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Sean Knock, Dord Khan, Liam Domain, AJ Mac 200017, Deck, Jen, Traffy, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Marnanel Thurman, 40-something Manchild, Jerry Ralph, John McLeod, James Wallace, Ben, Stephen Oliver, Shadowfiend 180X, Swan Ronson, Adam Gamer, Sir Fonzie Daz, Seraphic Euphoria, Real Random, Matthew Elliff, Pigeon's House, Shah H, Robert Oliphant, Dave Batten, Real Team Foxy Plays, Leonard Starbuck, and Kevin Mallon, our AMTV staff members.